sitting outside the principal's office is the worst. I mean, I understand I shouldn't have fought with that kid, even if he did have it coming, but why did they make you wait for so long? Just sitting there, thinking about what I've done and becoming a better person? Yeah, no, it's not for me. I slowly got up out of my seat when the office door opened and the principal, Mr. Mackey, beckoned me inside. He sat in a small office chair, rubbing his temples. The room itself was of a medium size and quite cluttered. He obviously had better things to do than sort out papers. "This is the third time this week, Daniel. What am I going to do about you?" Mr. Mackey asked. Had it really been 3 times already? I thought. Mr. Mackey continued. "You can't be like this, busting up other kids on a whim. One more visit and I'll have to suspend you. You need to learn to keep your anger in check." I still said nothing. He sighed again, looking off into the distance. He paused before speaking. "When was the last time you visited the Loop?" Oh no, I thought. That's not good. But there wasn't any use lying. I knew he could pull out my records with the click of a button. I'm not sure," I stammered. "You see, Daniel, that's where your problem lies. Once you learn that the Loop is good, your attitude will change for the better. You need to realize that the Loop is here to help you." Mr. Mackey stood up. "Come with me, Daniel." "But what about my classes?" I questioned. "This is more important." And so I followed him. It's not like I had a choice anyways. The Loop was a short 10-minute walk away from school. It was a glass building shaped like a dome. The glass was tinted a greenish-black color that quite frankly looked disgusting. The building itself was very hard to miss, being in the center of my small town and quite large, almost 3 kilometers in circumference. I followed Mr. Mackey in through the front door, which led into a reception-like area. It had a couple of potted plants and seating areas on either side of the front desk. But most striking of all was the banner at the center of the room, which had the words, "The Loop is good," written on it. We made our way to the front desk where there was a woman sitting behind her computer. She smiled at us and held up a small card reader. I pulled a small, green, plastic card from my pocket and placed it on the reader, which then flashed green. Mr. Mackey did the same, and we made our way through the door on the left-hand side. Inside the main room of the Loop was a walking track that stretched its way around the entire length of the building. Because of the shape and structure of the Loop, it felt like a greenhouse in there. As such, the air was always foggy, making it impossible to see to the other side. It was also impossible not to sweat. It was always dotted with people who were already walking the Loop and keeping pace with the drums that seemed to emanate from below the building. Yeah, drums. A big hollow rumble that filled the air every few seconds. As well as drums, there was a couple of speaker phones dotted around the Loop that played the same pre-recorded message. The Loop is good. The Loop protects. The Loop helps. The Loop restores. The Loop is safe. The Loop is good. This message always unnerved me for reasons I don't even know. It just seemed off. The voice that spoke the message seemed a little too cheery, too bright. I hated it. We quickly made our way onto the track and began walking, making sure to stay in sync with the drums. Huffing and puffing, Mr. Mackey turned to me. "Isn't this great? A chance to clear the mind, be set free from all anxiety." I didn't see it that way. Occasionally, a faster walker would overtake us. When that happened, Mr. Mackey would smile and wave. "The Loop is good," he would say cheerfully, and the passerby would respond in kind and quickly continue on. In the middle and the outskirts of the Loop were a group of people that the townspeople called guides. I called them freaks. Their limbs seemed to be too long, their heads disproportionately large, and they only spoke in harsh, rasping tones, almost like a soft clicking. They seemed too uncanny to be human. They were said to be caretakers of the loop. They would watch over us and lead us to a better life, hence the name. But no one knew exactly who they were. The guides always wore clothing over every part of their body, not showing a single bit of skin, which always amazed me, seeing how hot it always was. Their face was covered by a mask that had a symbol of a snake biting its own tail in the shape of an infinity sign, the symbol of the loop. Every so often, if a guide sensed that you weren't in time with the drums, they would pull you away with inhuman strength and take you to a separate room. I don't exactly know what happens in there, as I have thankfully never been, but I think the screams that echo through the loop tell me all I need to know. And people would leave that room missing limbs and walking in strange gaits, but they always rejoined the loop with renewed vigor, eager to begin again. I don't know why anyone would come here on purpose. We had walked about 3 laps of the loop when a gong sounded. Everyone instantly stood completely still. My heart was in my throat as I squeezed my eyes shut. The gong only meant one thing: death. It wasn't actually as uncommon as you might think. There were rumors that went around town that if you died on the loop, you would be reincarnated as a guide. So many older folks and people with terminal illnesses would spend most of their time just walking the loop. I, for one, didn't want to test that theory, and so I stood still with my eyes closed. Someone had died, and if you moved before the gong sounded again, you would join them. While moving or looking was not allowed, talking was, and so whispers went around the loop. People were telling each other who had died. It turned out to be Margaret Williams, an old lady who I would occasionally see on my walk to and from school. After hearing that, Mr. Mackey started talking to me. Imagine that, dying on the loop. Would that not be the best way to go? Surrounded by guides and fellow walkers. The tone in his voice disgusted me, but I knew most townspeople would agree with him. I suppressed my instincts to run as far away as I could and stood there until the gong sounded again. Once it did, I breathed a sigh of relief and continued walking the loop. Margaret's body was gone, of course, taken by the guides to who knows where. We were nearing the end of the loop, and so I turned to go off. Mr. Mackey called out to me, "Daniel, you're leaving so soon. Surely you have another hour or 2 left in you." I shrugged him off and kept walking. "The loop is good, Daniel," he called out again. While I was walking, I turned around to face him, but I felt myself bump into something. I turned around again and found myself face to face with the guide. I stood in complete fear. This was the closest I had ever been to one, and I just knew it was going to take me away for running into it. Oh no. I sighed as my thoughts screamed inside my head. With one swipe of its grotesquely long arm, the guide started to drag me along to the area that they take all of their victims to. I was screaming and batting away the guide, but it was no use. I was powerless to this creature. No one stepped in to help. No one even acknowledged the fact that this was going on. They knew better. It was inches away from pulling me into the room before I felt a hand on my shoulder. The guide instantly stopped and turned to the owner of that hand. It was Ernest Finch. Ernest was sort of revered in my town. He had the longest loop run ever recorded, a whopping 32 hours spent walking it. Because of that, my town hailed him as a sort of hero, or even priest of the loop. Even the guide seemed to steer clear from him and not give him any trouble. And here he was, protecting me. Ernest looked at the guy with a sort of stoic expression before simply saying, "It's not his time." Let him go." The guide growled under the mask, but still dropped me to the floor. Free from the guide, I rushed to thank Ernest, but stopped in my tracks when I felt a sharp, searing sensation on my right wrist. I turned around and the guide had both of its hands around it, muttering in a language I couldn't understand. After a few seconds, it released its grip, and I took a look at my wrist. On it, like a tattoo, was the infinity snake, the symbol of the loop. I looked at it in horror. What the hell is this? I thought. I tried rubbing it off to no avail. The symbol just wouldn't come off. I tried to find Ernest to get some help, but both him and the guide had disappeared. Resolving to myself to deal with it later, I hurried away, eager to not spend another second in this cursed place, and thankful to still have all of my body parts. I rushed through the door and scanned my card at the reader. The screen lit up and said, "Time elapsed, 2 hours and 48 minutes. Good, I thought. That should give me a couple more weeks. You see, it isn't compulsory to walk the loop, but if you don't do it too often, people start giving you strange looks, as if there was something wrong with you. I just keep my head down and walk the bare minimum, hoping to not attract attention, counting down the days before I can leave this damn town, never to return. And all for one reason. I hate the loop."